with you, Tapiwa, I'm very clear that it is by the grace of God.
Pain and joy, I've had it all, had it all. Can I tell you my story? Oh, this is mine.
It's something that when I spoke to you initially was very clear. And you know, looking back on our previous conversations, I understand why you were saying that. But tell me, when you were growing up, what kind of a teenager were you?
First of all, thank you for having me. Growing up, I was the life of the party, so to speak. I went to a prestigious high school and I received so many prestigious awards, you know, the dream of a teenager, any teenage boy at my age. And to be honest, it kind of got to my head, you know, because I thought I ruled the world, the high school world, so to speak, at that time. And it had so much impact on me because at home things were not so smooth. You know, I used to dread going home sometimes because, you know, my family being broken and everything, it really affected me when I was at home. But then when I was out with friends on the basketball court or on the rugby field, I felt alive. I felt so alive. So my teenage years were the best years of my life.
So was it because you felt acknowledged? Were you feeling a sense of belonging at school that you were not feeling at home?
Most definitely, because at school I was respected, I was feared, you know, people looked up to me at school. Every little kid who came after me wanted to be like me, you know. And at home it was more just silence. It was just so quiet, you know. So I felt kind of empty at home, but then high school years filled up my life. When I was at school, I was filled up.
So what was the first time like when you did take drugs? What was, just, you know, give me the scenario. What were we looking at and where were you?
Well, when you start taking drugs, I like to classify it as being in prison. And I did my time in South Africa, Durban specifically. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time I tried it, I was in a place I was not supposed to be in, for reasons not known to me even up to now, you know, because I tend to say sometimes the devil can put your life on pause. And I think that's the time that the devil kind of took the remote and just pressed the pause button, because that 2 seconds that I said yes to trying that drug changed my life for the worst. For about a good 4 years, I was a total wreck. And I'm not going to lie and say the first time was disgusting or terrible or horrible. It was a feeling that I've never felt before. It was so exhilarating. It was so, at that moment, uplifting, that I felt that I could do anything and be anyone. And, you know.
And so that's the high.
That's the high.
So, but where were you? What took you to the place where, because you mentioned that you were at a place where you shouldn't have been.
Definitely.
You found a woman there?
Yes, I did mention that earlier.
And what happened?
Well, first of all, I was working a very good job and I was kind of earning money on a daily basis.
Right.
So I always had money on me. And I think I was staying by myself. So I feel like that loneliness that I felt when I was back here at home kind of followed me to South Africa, because I was also lonely, also quiet. I didn't really talk to people, socialize that much when I was in South Africa until I made friends. And one night I decided after work to have a drink, and I had one too many. And this is why they say alcohol could be a gateway, because I had one too many and I felt confident and I went into the dirtiest place ever. I was lured by a woman. Mm-hmm. She lured me into this place and we had a great time for a few minutes. And after that, she asked me for money. So it became clear what I had just got involved in. And when I gave her this money, she called a certain man who was Nigerian. I'm sorry to say that, but he came and gave her this small piece of rock. And she did everything. She lit it. It was making this sparky sound. And I was interested. I said, "What is that?" And she told me what it was. She asked me if I wanted to try. And because I was drunk at that time, I tried it and it had no effect. The second time I tried it, I was totally sober, and that's when I felt that high that I spoke about. Yeah, this is crack cocaine.
It's crack cocaine. You had heard about it. It was something that you intentionally had said you never wanted because you were a sports person.
This is why they say never say never in life, because growing up I heard of stories about people doing this. I saw people doing it, and I would despise them. I'd be like, this, come on, really? You know, what are you doing with your life, etc. But no one is safe.
No one is safe.
No one is safe.
But you were talking about the high, so tell me about that high, because I don't think people who have never taken drugs understand what it is that people chase after they've taken it. So it's a euphoria.
Yes.
And you feel that you can conquer anything. And you're coming from a family where you were saying that you were longing for a connection, and you were seeking, acceptance elsewhere.
Yeah.
Did you feel like, at that moment, the world literally was at your fingertips?
The worst part about the high is it only lasts less than 5 minutes. That's the worst part of it all. And, well, maybe worse still is the fact that you only get that high once ever in your life. So the problem is when you want to start chasing that same high that you had that one time and not finding it, that's where the problem comes. Because you start chasing things that are not there. And the more you chase it, the more you take. So you start taking more, and you start depending on it more, and you start doing things to be able to afford it. And sometimes it's beyond your means,
And that's where we're going to pick up when we come back, Tapiwa.
Okay.
Because I think you're mentioning something. When we talk about drug and substance abuse, I don't think people really understand what the process is in terms of getting the high and then wanting to always get it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I never knew that, once you have that initial high, you never reach that high again. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to pick up from there.
Okay.
So if you're watching, this is EN. I'm with Tapiwa, and we're talking about substance abuse. We'll be right back. We're back on the EN show, and I'm with Tapiwa. So Tapiwa, we were talking about the high that normally someone would get, and that you can't get it once the initial high. What was the worst thing that you did for drugs?
Wow. I think there's a couple, because anything that I did for drugs was bad.
Yeah.
So to say worse is actually just, I'd rather just say everything I did for drugs was bad. But just to name one, I would go door to door and speak to especially the white people in South Africa.
Right.
And I would make up stories, tell fibs, so to speak. I would make up stories about me having kids and our shack burnt down so they don't have any clothes or food to eat. And I would ask them if they could help me with any food or any clothes or anything that they may have. I never used to ask for money because they'll tell straight away that, no, this is for drugs.
And money is always a problem to give people because you don't trust people.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I found a way around it, and that was basically my job in our little crew. So after telling them these stories, they would willingly give me a lot of things. They'll give me clothes, they'll give me food. And why I mentioned this one is because I used to lie to people, to manipulate people, to get something out of them. And that's why I feel like it's worse than most of the other things I've done to get drugs. Because as soon as they give me this food or clothes, we would go and sell them for peanuts and go straight and buy drugs.
So do you think the gift that you had of, for lack of a better word, the gift of gab, the personality that was bigger than life, was you then use that personality to then start, tapping into the emotions of your victims?
Look, my personality helped me in two ways, negatively and positively.
Okay.
Negatively, I used it to manipulate people, and it always worked. I got out of trouble with police. I got out of trouble with fellow addicts. I got out of trouble with my parents. But on another note, it also helped me positively because I used it to control myself, so to speak, in my surroundings. I never used to go overboard with certain things. Sometimes things would be recommended that we do to go out and get money for drugs, and I would just turn it down because I knew that's not who I am. So I've always had the grace of God in me, deep down, rooted in me, reminding me that this is not who you are. This is not where you came from. And I think at the end of it all, that's what saved me, to be honest.
Yeah. So when you talk about, having to really, get to a point where you start deceiving other people around you, was it because of the withdrawal of the drug? Because for you to want something, you go through a withdrawal period. Just talk to me about the withdrawal. Is it a craving? Is it, I want to really understand what motivates people to sometimes kill people because they're looking for drugs, to sometimes steal from your loved ones, to really be very drastic in their actions. What is a withdrawal and how does that feel?
I think more than the withdrawal, it becomes the lifestyle. When you become so entrenched in doing the same thing over and over again, you tend to find ways to maintain. And luckily for me, I never did hard drugs. Hard drugs are the one that you actually inject into your bloodstream, and those are the hard drugs that cause physical illnesses when you don't have it. The ones I took affected me mentally, so to speak, to a certain extent. So for me to go look out for more was because of the lifestyle, was because I couldn't just sit and not have, because then what am I doing with my life at that time?
So what were you running away from? Because if it's mentally impacting you, you're getting some sort of euphoria and you're getting some sort of I don't know what you may, whatever you may call it, that is happening mentally. And then you're not reaching the high that you want. So what is the logic of continuously getting into that cycle and wanting more?
It becomes a form of lifestyle, like I said, and it's hard to break that lifestyle because you have nothing else going on for you when you take drugs, and everything else is totally unimportant to you. I mean, I lost touch with friends, I lost touch with family, I lost 2 or 3 jobs, very good jobs in the process, so I had nothing to live for at that time. I just felt this is all I have going on for myself, so let me continue. And since I'm good at speaking and asking people for money and they give me money, let me continue. Why stop? So it's a lifestyle that you get addicted to more than the actual drug, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've always wanted to know, why is it that people lose weight when they're taking drugs?
Well, when you start taking drugs, things start happening in your body.
Right.
Physically and mentally, like I said. So there's the physical effects of it is you start depriving yourself of food because there are certain things that are not normal, that your body's not used to, that are being intook by when you're taking these drugs. So your body is meeting all these new things, and it's like shocking it. Like it's shocked. Like, what is this that's coming into my body? Type
So
thing.
you don't want to be eating food.
So you don't want to eat. You don't want to sleep. You don't want to do the normal things that you usually do as a human being.
And this then happens where people, go on for 3-4 days without ever sleeping. And
3-4 days is, I've gone 7 days without sleep.
7 days.
7 days straight without sleep. 5 days straight without eating. Just drinking water. I was looking thin as a pencil.
Wow.
So people can go for longer. There's people who can binge for a month. And when you talk about eating, maybe they'll have some mayo, and that's food for them. I remember we used to buy a lot of mayo just, to keep our stomachs lined.
And so you met a family that then took over your life for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Tell me the first interaction. Or better yet, when we come back, I want us to really explore what it was like to be in a family where they had taken your ATM card and, they were trading their daughter. So Tapiwa, we're going to pick up from that conversation. For me, I think when I heard the story, it was one that really, pulled at my heartstrings. But for all those who are watching, this is the Ian Show. I'm with Tapiwa, and we will be right back. Welcome back to EN, and today I'm with Tapiwa Chandavengerwa. Tapiwa, before the show, we actually mentioned, should I introduce you as a recovering addict? How do you feel about that?
I would like to actually denounce that term. Well, for my own personal life. For others, it's okay. But for me, I do not think I'm a recovering addict because before the set, you played a song, Gracefully Broken. And that song touched me because I think that's what God did with my life. He put me through the fire and he took me out for a moment like this. So I'd like to think of myself as someone who's been through it. You know, it's in the past, it's over, it's under the water, it's water under the bridge. You know, I do not believe I'll ever go back to that life again because I know what it's like and I would not wish it on anyone. And for me to say I'm recovering, no, I think I've recovered.
And talking about the fire, we were talking about this family that the only way that I can express this, Tapiwa, is that they kidnapped you.
Yeah.
Am I wrong to say this? Maybe tell us about this experience.
Okay, well, after losing my second job in Johannesburg,
Right.
I got a very good job again in Midrand. And this job, I went about 3 months clean at that time, and then I relapsed again. It was a woman. I guess they were my weakness.
So that was your Achilles heel.
It looks like, it seems like it, now that I think of it.
Right.
And I had, she lured me to her house, actually, because she says, we had a conversation. At the end of the conversation, she mentioned that her father was the best drug dealer in town. And I should go and stay with her. I mean, I should go and visit him if I want the best stuff around.
Wow.
So, you know, me being me at that time, I followed and I went there and I got to know the family. And one thing led to another, and I ended up staying in that household for a year. They actually gave me a little corner room and they made me pay rent for that room. And it got so bad that they would make sure that I wake up and go to work every single day because I was their bread and butter.
Was there anyone else that was staying in the house at the time? Or were you their money maker?
It was a family. It was a family of about 5 kids, the daughter included, and the mother. So the father is a Nigerian and he's a stepfather to this girl who lured me there. So it was a family, and I was basically taking care of the family because my salary, all of it would go to them at the end of the month. I actually gave him my ATM card and my PIN. In exchange, he would give me drugs on credit, you know, for from the 1st of the month to the 15th of the month. That's the arrangement we had. Right. So I would take drugs worth 8,000 Rand by the 15th. And then after that, he'd tell me I've reached my limit. I can't take any more. And what did this lead to? It led me to go to work and start stealing from work, you know, because I was a manager. So I knew how to manipulate, you know, the computers and all that. And every time I'd come back home after work, and the first thing I would do is just take out whatever money I have and give it straight to him. When I tried to be strong about it and keep the money to myself, he would send his daughter to my room, you know?
So he was in essence using his daughter or stepdaughter to get as much money from you as possible.
Out of me as possible for one whole year.
And so where was the mom during this period?
Well, they both have to eat, you know, so their belief was if they don't supply their daughter with drugs, she's going to go and buy them somewhere else. So why not they just give her, you know? So that's what they believed. So they would work in cahoots together. The mom did show signs of feeling sorry for me here and there, you know, but the father was ruthless.
And feeling sorry for her daughter?
Well, she would speak like she felt sorry, but then she showed signs of just giving up, you know, like I don't know what to do with it anymore.
Was the mom using drugs as well?
No.
So the mom was not using drugs?
No.
The daughter was on drugs?
Yeah.
Dad was not on drugs?
No.
They were literally dealers?
They were just dealers in a house, in a big house, just dealing from the house. People would actually drive in, come. Some people would actually come and see the daughter. You know, it wasn't just me. It was a whole bunch of people. You know, so I was trapped. I was trapped in that house for a year. I couldn't get out until the day something happened where I was hungry. I went to the kitchen to look for food because I told him some of the money was to contribute for food. And I found no food at all. And then the youngest son, his name is Obina, came running to me and he tugged my leg and he says, "My mom and dad are hiding food from you, so you can't eat." So I said, "What?" So that kind of hit me hard, and I just went back to my room. It was a Sunday. I went back to my room. I cried and I cried and I cried and I prayed. And I got the courage to actually get up and go to him and told him, "Listen, I'm moving out today." And by the grace of God, two of my friends who were from here had visited me during that year to see what's wrong with me, what's going on. And they had just sent me some money to move out, but I couldn't move out. So that money was held up somewhere. And at the same time, I made a plan to ask for that money. I got that money, and luckily I had found a place to stay. The guy was ready for me anytime I was ready to move in. So I just took the money, told him I'm leaving, packed my stuff, and I went to stay where I was staying.
And how was it to move out? Was it liberating for you? Was it like a weight off your shoulders? And another thing is, did you ever think of calling out for your parents and reaching out to your mom? Because I know that your mom was in South Africa at the time. What stopped you from doing that?
The whole time I thought I was being clever. I thought no one would ever find out. And I thought I could control my life. I could balance my life because this family seemed to accommodate me very well for a certain period. Until, when you stay with someone, a stranger, when you finally get too used to them, there's always bound to be loggerheads. So there's one evening where I had an altercation with a daughter where I think I had spent about 3,000 rands credit. And I, in turn, did not get what I wanted to get. And when that 3,000 was done, the father said no more. So she opted to go out and look for money outside, so that she can come back so that we can smoke. So I refused. I said, "Don't do that. Let's just sleep, like normal people, and wake up tomorrow and whatever." That day when she left, I was broken. I asked myself, what am I doing? I asked myself, why am I cursed? What's going on? To the point where the next day I went to work, I typed an email to my dad and I told him, "Listen, Dad, I have a problem."
And that was your ground zero moment.
That's when I started. That's when I came out.
Yeah.
And I let my dad know that I have a problem.
Tapiwa, for me, I think now I have so many other questions. Number one, I want to know, have you ever overdosed or near-death experiences? I want to also know, have you ever been in very violent situations where you've seen violence or, around you? But this episode, we're coming to an end with it. But next week, we are going to address all of those questions and really get into your recovery because, you've come a long way. But I know that it's a learning lesson for so many other people. Yeah. So if you're watching the Ian Show, this is Tapiwa Chandavengerwa. We are talking about drug and substance abuse. This episode was too big for us to just do one episode. So tune in next week to hear more about how Tapiwa gets himself out of that sticky situation. Thank you, Tapiwa, for being with us.
Thank you very much, Emily.
This is EN, sending love and light your way.